If you're over 60, there's a certain walking habit that could quietly increase your stroke risk, not while you're out walking, but later, while you're asleep. No chest pain, no dizziness, no warning signs. One moment everything feels fine, and the next you wake up unable to move an arm, struggling to speak, or feeling like the room is spinning. As a brain specialist, I've seen far too many older adults experience sudden and life-changing strokes. Not because they smoked, not because their cholesterol was high, but because of something they believed was helping them: walking. Yes, walking. If it's done at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or with certain bad habits, it can slowly harm your circulation, lead to blood clot formation, and put you at risk for a stroke during your brain's most vulnerable hours, between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. In this video, I'll go over 9 walking mistakes I've seen cause serious problems for older adults, even the ones who seemed perfectly healthy. I'll also share real patient stories. People who thought they were doing everything right until one single walk changed their life completely. If you value your brain health, your independence, or the well-being of someone you care about, you'll want to hear this. Habit number 1, walking without drinking water. Walking without drinking water may not seem risky, after all you're just moving. But for someone over 60, this habit can quietly raise stroke risk by causing dehydration. Even mild dehydration, losing just 1–2% of body water, can hurt thinking and coordination, and over 5–8% can cause fatigue, dizziness, and even mental decline. If water loss reaches 10% or more, things get really serious. Older adults are especially vulnerable because thirst signals weaken with age, meaning you may not feel thirsty even as your body lacks water. In stroke patients, dehydration is common. Almost half of stroke patients are dehydrated when they arrive at hospital, and 2/3 get even more dehydrated during their stay. One study found that 36% of stroke patients were dehydrated on admission, and 62% became dehydrated during treatment. Importantly, dehydrated patients were far more likely to get worse. 42% saw worsening or no change in their condition, compared to just 17% of well-hydrated patients. That means dehydration made bad outcomes almost 4 times more likely. When you walk without drinking water, even a short walk on a cool day, you still lose fluid through sweating and breathing more heavily. If you're already starting off a bit dehydrated, that loss can shift blood volume, making circulation less stable. That raises your chances of forming small clots or dropping blood pressure suddenly, both of which are stroke risk factors. Imagine Mr. Khan, a 68-year-old retired teacher. Every morning he took a 30-minute walk in the park, often forgetting his water bottle. One early spring morning, temperatures were mild and Mr. Khan felt fine. But later that night, he felt dizzy, then suddenly collapsed. It turned out he'd had a mini stroke. Doctors noted he had signs of dehydration, dark urine, dry mouth, and low blood pressure. He'd lost a few percent of his body water during the walk, and without drinking, his circulation weakened. He recovered, but only after a scary night in the hospital. The link between hydration and stroke risk is indirect, but clear. A long-term NIH-linked study of 11,000 adults showed that people with higher blood sodium, a sign of poorer hydration, had about a 21% higher risk of dying younger and a 39% higher risk of chronic diseases like stroke, heart failure, dementia, diabetes, and high blood pressure. So when you go walking, especially over 60, bring water. Take small sips along the way. Even mild dehydration can raise stroke risk in subtle ways that don't hurt immediately, but could later. This habit is simple to fix, but may make a big difference if it becomes regular. Habit number 2, walking without sun protection, increasing stroke-linked inflammation. At first glance, skipping sun protection while walking seems just like leaving sunscreen behind. But over time, UV exposure and heat can spur inflammation, especially in older adults, and inflammation contributes to stroke risk. Inflammation is a key part of how strokes worsen brain damage. When your body spends time in the sun without protection, even in short bursts, skin stress and moderate heat can raise levels of inflammatory substances in the blood, like certain white blood cells and signaling molecules. One study found that for every 5-degree increase on a heat-related index, markers like monocytes rose 4.2%, eosinophils 9.5%, natural killer T cells 9.9%, and tumor necrosis factor alpha 7%. Those substances fuel low-level inflammation, which over time may contribute to artery damage or plaque buildup, factors that increase stroke risk. Take Mrs. Fatima, a 65-year-old who loved her mid-morning walks. She'd skip sunscreen, wearing just a hat. Over months, she started feeling unusually tired after walks. A checkup showed elevated inflammatory markers. Her doctor warned that repeated sun exposure without protection can spark subtle inflammation creeping into arteries. She had early signs of carotid artery thickening, a risk factor for ischemic stroke. After she started wearing broad-brimmed hats and a sun-blocking layer during walks, her markers improved over a few months. Habit number 3, walking in isolation. It means no one notices warning signs. Walking alone may feel peaceful, but it also means no one is watching for trouble. That lack of oversight can be dangerous if sudden stroke signs appear, like weakness, confusion, or dizziness, and no one is nearby to act fast. Studies show that loneliness itself raises stroke risk. A long-term Harvard T.H. Chan study found older adults who reported chronic loneliness had a 25% higher risk of stroke compared to those not lonely. Even more striking, those who stayed lonely over time had a 56% higher stroke risk. The physical act of being alone may mean delays in getting help, and chronic isolation also affects heart health through stress and poor behaviour. Let's talk about Mr. Ahmed, a 70-year-old widower. He walked alone each evening around his neighbourhood. One night he felt speech slurred halfway through his walk and sat down confused. Because no one walked with him, he lay there weak until a neighbour heard a rustle and found him. That night he was diagnosed with a stroke and got treatment just in time. If someone had been with him, help could have come sooner and recovery might have been smoother. Habit number 4, walking too slowly or at uneven pace. Walking slowly or struggling with a steady pace may seem harmless, but it can reflect underlying health issues and is linked to higher stroke risk. Research into walking speed among postmenopausal women, average age around 65, found that those who walked slowest had a 69% higher risk of ischemic stroke compared to the fastest walkers, even after adjusting for other health factors. In broader studies that pooled several groups across different ages and settings, walking pace mattered even more. Those walking fastest, around 5.6 km/h, had 44% lower stroke risk versus those at the slowest pace of about 1.6 km/h. Each extra 1 km/h in pace cut stroke risk by about 13%. Now here's a story that brings it to life. Mrs. Shabana, 72, believed she was doing great by walking at her own slow rhythm, sometimes stopping to catch her breath. Over time, she noticed new stiffness in her leg and occasional dizzy spells during her walks. She chalked it up to aging. After suffering a mild stroke, doctors noted her slow gait as a strong warning sign. They explained that slow walking likely reflected poorer circulation and brain blood flow. After therapy and strength training, she could walk faster and steadier, and her risk markers improved. The science here makes sense. A slower or uneven walking pattern may signal weaker muscles, less efficient circulation, and subtle cerebrovascular changes, not just declines in fitness. Being able to keep a brisk, stable pace supports better blood flow, heart efficiency, and seems to protect against stroke. Slow walkers may unknowingly be masking health issues older adults should address. So, walking with intention matters. Try to maintain a steady pace, comfortable but firm. Even if that pace is slower than in youth, making it consistent and purposeful helps. Working on leg strength, posture, and speed can all help reduce stroke risk. Habit number 5, walking at the hottest hours of the day. If you walk during midday or early afternoon when temperatures peak, you may be exposing yourself to heat stress that quietly raises stroke risk. When older adults walk during these periods without adapting, body stress increases. Higher body temperature, dehydration, and inflammation can combine to make blood thicker and circulation less reliable. One lab-based study found that even mild heat exposure boosts markers like monocytes by 4.2%, eosinophils by 9.5%, natural killer T cells by 9.9%, and tumor necrosis factor alpha by 7%. While those markers may not sound dramatic, when they build up over time in older blood vessels, they raise the chance of clot formation or arterial damage that can lead to strokes. Consider Mr. Haroon, 75, a retired engineer who walked during noon every day, convinced the sun did him good. Lately, he started waking feeling groggy, and during one hot walk, he felt disoriented and collapsed briefly. Fortunately, a passerby helped him up and he was checked at a clinic. Doctors noted signs of early dehydration and elevated inflammatory markers. They warned him that walking under intense sun had triggered a mild stroke-like event. After switching to morning or evening walks, wearing light fabrics and using cooling measures, his symptoms faded and circulatory tests improved. Exposing yourself to extreme heat while walking can bring on silent vascular strain, inflammation, slightly thicker blood, heat-triggered narrowing of vessels. That doesn't hurt right away but increases risk during vulnerable periods, especially with existing conditions like hypertension. Safer alternatives are walking during cooler hours, early morning or late evening. If heat is unavoidable, take cooling breaks, wear breathable clothing, stay hydrated, and watch for warning signs like dizziness or confusion. Heat may feel mild, but its cumulative effect on your circulation can be serious if ignored. Habit number 6, walking without any safety or alert plan. Walking alone without a way to get help if something goes wrong may be riskier than it appears. If a stroke starts during your walk, like sudden weakness or slurred speech, and you're alone without a phone or alert device, delays in getting help can reduce recovery chances. Beyond that, being alone while walking can feed into long-term isolation, which itself raises stroke risk. A major study following more than 12,000 US adults over 50 found that those who felt continuously lonely for years had a whopping 56% higher stroke risk than those who remained socially connected. Their loneliness wasn't just occasional, it persisted over multiple years. Even those who were lonely at just one time had a 25% higher stroke risk. Chronic loneliness raises blood pressure, stress hormones, and inflammation, all of which play into stroke risk. Take the case of Mrs. Nazia, 68, who lost her husband and walked alone each evening. No phone, no companion. One evening, she felt confusion and began to drift off balance. With no one around, she lay on the path for some time before someone found her. A stroke diagnosis followed. If she had had a medical alert or walked with someone, help would have come faster. Her recovery was longer and the outcome harder. Being alone doesn't just raise the danger when a medical emergency starts. It reflects deeper social isolation, which worsens physical health. So now Mrs. Nazia walks with a friend or neighbour or carries a simple medical alert device, so help is always within reach. Habit number 7, walking with poor balance or gait instability. Walking with unstable balance or an uneven gait may seem like just a sign of aging, but it can greatly raise stroke risk over time. Problems like poor balance or unsteady walking often reflect subtle vascular changes or early brain issues, which may precede strokes. Nearly a third of adults over 65 report balance or walking problems, and about 23% say they've had one or more falls in the past year. Balance and walking issues decrease quality of life more than falls, and falls themselves increase mortality risk by about 50%. These problems are linked to a loss of roughly 60% in quality-adjusted life years, making this a serious health burden. A clear example: Mr. Bashir, 74, began walking with shorter steps and a wider stance. He felt shaky, especially on uneven ground. He blamed it on arthritis, but he later had a mild stroke. Scans revealed small white matter changes inside his brain that affected his gait and balance, preceding the stroke event. Studies support this. Slower walking speeds and gait issues may signal subclinical brain damage years before a stroke. In postmenopausal women, those in the slowest walking speed group, less than 1.06 meters per second, had a 69% higher risk of ischemic stroke compared to the fastest walkers. The middle group, 1.06 to 4 saw a 29% increased risk. Even after accounting for other conditions like hypertension and diabetes, walking speed remained a strong predictor of stroke. Beyond speed, subtle disturbances in gait, like stride variability, also raise risk. Older adults with inconsistent stride time or swing time were significantly more prone to falls later on. One standard deviation rise in stride time variability raised the chance of future falls by over 5 times. For swing time variability, it doubled the risk. Over time, each unsteady walk signals growing vulnerability, each fall spikes blood pressure, and each misstep chips away at brain health until a stroke becomes more likely. What helps? Simple balance checks, like the Berg Balance Scale, can spot problems early, though they have limits in very active older adults. The parallel walk test, where you walk between 2 narrow lines, may reveal dynamic balance issues and help catch early signs before a fall or stroke occurs. For Mr. Bashir, targeted therapy, balance exercises, leg strengthening, posture work helped him walk more stably. His gait improved and follow-up tests showed better blood flow markers. His doctor said this likely reduced his stroke risk. Habit number 8. Walking while distracted by mobile phone use. Using a phone while walking may feel routine, but for older adults it disrupts gait, balance, and awareness and may elevate stroke risk indirectly. Multiple studies link mobile use during walking to changes in gait, slower pace, shorter steps, wider stance, and increased time spent with both feet on the ground, indicating cautious but unstable gait. One study showed walking while dialing or texting lowered walking speed significantly and affected stride length, step width, and cadence, even in younger adults. Older people with reduced cognitive reserves are even more affected in stability, though local trunk stability measures may seem unchanged. Small deviations still increase fall and stroke risks. Real-world advice underscores the danger. People who text or read on their phone walked slower and deviated from a straight line. Texters often adopt a rigid posture, which increases the risk of falling, and 35% of healthy participants reported past accidents while texting and walking. Consider Mrs. Salma, 70, who regularly checked her phone for messages while walking in her courtyard. One day she lost balance on a slight slope and fell, hitting her head. She later had a small stroke. Her doctor linked the fall, triggered by distracted walking, to her eventual stroke, noting that distracted gait increases instability and stress on the system. Beyond immediate risk, distracted walking signals reduce situational awareness. Missing visual or sensory cues, like a curb or obstruction, can cause a quick stumble or head injury. If an early stroke sign appears, like facial drooping, weak arm, and the person is distracted, precious minutes may be lost before help is sought. Walking while focused on your phone splits attention, gait becomes mechanical, and secondary tasks override balance. Older brains need more resources to maintain posture. When those resources are tied up by reading or typing, balance suffers. Simple fix: don't use your phone while walking. Stop in a safe spot to read or respond. That preserves your attention, posture, and stability. Helping Mrs. Salma adopt this rule likely prevented further incidents. Habit number 9, walking while carrying heavy or unbalanced loads. Carrying heavy bags or uneven weight while walking might seem harmless, but for older adults it disturbs posture, balance and spinal alignment, and may quietly raise stroke risk through fall-related injuries or strain. Using a heavy single shoulder bag, like a purse or messenger bag, forces muscles on one side to overcompensate, which can push spine alignment off and strain gait. A Reddit discussion noted that heavy weight carried on a single shoulder can cause spinal curvature, functional scoliosis, a messed up gait, compressed nerves, poor posture, all of which raise fall risk. Another comment explained that locked arms or heavy objects reduce balance. People don't realize walking is literally a controlled fall. Take away a part of that equilibrium by disrupting the balance of the arms. It would increase the chances of falling. Why stroke risk? A fall may result in head injury or trigger blood vessel stress, especially if the fall is sudden and the person has undiagnosed vascular fragility. Even without a fall, carrying heavy loads may raise blood pressure variably, strain the heart, and trigger vessel responses that over years increase stroke risk. Take Mr. Imran, 76, who carried a heavy tote with groceries along one shoulder each day. He began to notice soreness in his neck and a wobbly walk. One afternoon, he took a misstep, fell, and landed on his side, fracturing a bone. Once hospitalized, doctors discovered chronic blood pressure fluctuations tied to postural instability and reduced balance, all linked back to asymmetrical load carrying. To support stability, research shows arm swing is crucial. People are around 70% less likely to fall when arms swing freely. Artificially restricting arm motion by carrying a bag or phone takes away a key balance mechanism. Best alternatives: use a lightweight backpack worn snugly and placed high. This distributes weight evenly. Mayo Clinic recommends not carrying over 15% of body weight in backpacks. For grocery trips, use a rolling cart or make multiple lighter trips. In Mr. Imran's case, switching to a wheeled trolley and light backpack resolved his posture issue. He regained balance, walked more steadily, and avoided further incidents. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more tips to keep you healthy and safe. Stay active, stay smart, and I'll see you in the next one.